The Institute for the Study of War, a research group that we refer to quite a lot in these podcasts, has published an extraordinary map showing the potential damage that US Tomahawk land attack missiles could cause. Now, we talked in our last episode about US considering giving them to Ukraine. What the ISW has said, has shown, has mapped the range of those missiles against potential targets. And this is something that came up a lot in the questions, so thank you for those. Their assessment is they could significantly damage, if not destroy, key military assets inside Russia. And there are two that stand out: the Shahed drone factory in Yelabuga and the Engels 2 airfield in Saratov, which is a strategic airbase used by Russia's long-range bombers to attack Ukraine on a regular basis. So we talked about the concerns that discussion about Tomahawks has caused in the Kremlin, and that is clearly the reason why. When I was looking at that map, I couldn't help being reminded of what Joseph Stalin did during World War II, this sort of titanic effort by Russia to dismantle many of its arms production factories, tank factories that were located in Western Russia, and move them eastwards, sort of behind into the Caucasus, into Siberia, to put them out of range of advancing German Nazi forces during World War II in order to sort of increase Russia's resilience. And were missiles, for example, like the Tomahawk to come into Ukraine's possession, or perhaps if the Flamingo proves itself capable, and if Ukraine can produce enough of them, then this is a dilemma that Moscow is going to face. Of course, as ever, thank you for your questions. If you've got them, please ask them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can next time. I've got into the comments, I've answered a lot of them there. I've got a few to get through today. A lot of you focused on Tomahawk and Flamingo, comparing the difference between the American Tomahawk, the Ukrainian-made Flamingo. First question on Tomahawk. Why were they not given 3 years ago? They could have saved countless lives. It's a good question, but as ever, with donations of weapons from Ukraine's allies to Ukraine, there has always been three competing concerns. The first is the demands of Ukraine. They have issued the demand signal of what they want, what they need. You remember they've said close the skies, they've asked for tanks, they've asked for F-16s, GMLRS guided rocket launchers, all of these weapons which have, over the course of the war, been delivered. The first concern of their allies is whether or not the delivery of these weapons will trigger World War III. Put simply, that's the concern. Will this be seen, will this be enough of an escalation to trigger an even larger response from Russia? And you remember in the first October of the war, there was real concern that Moscow was on the cusp of firing a tactical nuclear weapon, potentially a demonstration strike over the Black Sea. Most of Putin's threats have proven hollow, and certainly, mercifully, his nuclear threats have proven hollow over the course of the war. But nonetheless, that has remained a concern. And the third concern has been the availability of these weapons in the stockpiles of Ukraine's allies. So those three things: what Ukraine wants, the fear of escalation, and the availability of these weapons. But it's worth pointing out that sometimes it's happened quickly, sometimes it's taken much, much longer. But what we have seen over the course of the war is Ukraine often gets its way with the weapons that it asks for. Storm Shadow bunker-busting cruise missiles from the UK, Challenger 2 tanks, Leopard tanks, Abrams tanks from America, GMLRS and HIMARS rocket launchers, F-16 fighter jets. What about Flamingo? We haven't heard much about it. One of you asked, is it better than Tomahawk? Ukraine has announced that it's making Flamingo, that it's operational, that it's making a handful of them at the moment a day, but it wants to ramp that up. Potentially, it claims to have a range that can match some of the Tomahawk variants, but with a larger payload. The military, the weapons experts I've spoken to suggest that the Tomahawk is more sophisticated, it's much, much more expensive, therefore it can fly lower, it can avoid detection more successfully, and it is hardened against electronic warfare threats. So whilst they will both have sort of devastating explosive power if they reach their target, the Tomahawk might be more valuable because it's more likely to reach their targets. But as ever, we've talked as well about the cost curve of weapons, and if Ukraine can produce more Flamingos more cheaply, then it can perhaps make up for accuracy with volume.